Well, hello again, and welcome to another of these series of In Conversations with leaders from across the health and care system. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Andrew Reid, who is the Chief Executive of the Royal College of Surgeons. Andrew, thanks so much for finding the time to be with us today. Royal College of Surgeons, I was thinking about this. It's one of those organisations, people watching this or listening to it, walking the dog on Blackpool Beach or wherever they are, will go, yeah, I know about the College of Surgeons. But if someone asked them down the pub, what's the Royal College of Surgeons all about? It probably would be quite a difficult question to answer. So tell us, what does the college actually do? What's it for? What does it do? Who do you represent? And then maybe a word about any interactions you have with some of the other Royal Colleges, because there are quite a few, aren't there?
Yeah, thanks, Richard, and thanks for inviting me to take part in this series. It's always good to see you and your colleagues and all the members of the organisation. So we're the Royal College of Surgeons of England. I should specify that because of the Royal Colleges of Surgeons are available, would you believe, across the UK and of course beyond. So we're the professional membership organisation for predominantly surgeons, but also other members of the surgical team. And our mission, if you like, is to advance surgical care. That's our strap line, and that's what we're about. We provide training, education, exams and assessment, continuing development, policy advice guidelines for surgeons and surgery, and we work with organisations such as yourselves and policymakers and government organisations to promote best practice in surgery. So quite a lot of stuff in there, and I haven't even touched all of the other things that we do, such as being the home of the Hunterian Museum, one of the best museums in the country. So it's a varied organisation.
Yeah, I can certainly vouch for the museum. It's great, and we'll come on to the the facilities you've got a little bit later on. Andrew, tell us a little bit more about some of your international work. I was struck. I mean, some people again listening in will have been in a conference where Derek Alderson spoke. It was, I think, just before he moved on as being president, and in the audience was one of the senior executives from the University Hospitals Birmingham, who was also on the agenda. And once he got back to Birmingham, he did an event for staff using Derek and Dion Morton as well, just to highlight the incredible role Birmingham particularly had played in developing surgery internationally. But I know it's a big element of your work, isn't it?
It is. So, I mean, we represent nearly 30,000 members across the world, about 20% of which are based internationally. So we have a big international interest. We work a lot with lower middle income countries to develop and sustain surgery there. So we're not about going to lower middle income countries, doing surgery and coming back. We're more about looking at ways in which we can support and develop the local surgeons and surgical teams to sustain surgery in sometimes, as you'll understand, very basic circumstances. But one of the things that Derek, as you mentioned, our past president, our immediate past president, did was to promote a research approach with Dion in University of Birmingham, and we are linked up with other colleges right across the world, particularly in Australia and America, looking at global research in surgery, looking at, I think they started off looking at things like, is there a good way of providing antiseptic for cleaning wounds in operations and so on. So lots of interesting stuff. And our research profile, we don't do research, but we promote research. Our research profile has been increased enormously through the work that we've done in recent years.
That's great. I mean, I remember that presentation well from Derek, and it was humbling actually just to see the incredible role that British surgeons had made in supporting those activities. I think he talked about cleft palate surgery in sub-Saharan Africa, if I'm right. It was it really was very inspiring, and something I'm sure everyone's there is very, very proud of. So we're recording this at the end of April 2021, and it's impossible not to do this without thinking about the pandemic and the response to the pandemic. It struck me thinking about this conversation is that there are lots of new things have entered into the national lexicon, haven't they? And we're all now over the dinner table. We're like the Olympics. We're all experts in springboard diving and gymnastics. We're now all experts on PPE, ventilators, and the benefits of lateral flow and PCR testing. And one of the other things that come in is this concept of P1s and P2s and surgical priorities. Just tell us a little bit about the role of the college in the pandemic and the response to it.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. And the other thing is that I'm pleased to say neither of us is on mute at the moment. So we got quite quickly into the issue of how to prioritize surgery, how to prioritize patients needing surgery in times when there was very limited capacity. So, of course, the big issue, as everybody knows, in the beginning of the pandemic in particular, was to focus on intensive care and ventilators and all of those things that were so necessary to support people and mitigate the loss of life, which has been dreadful. And we worked with the specialist associations and indeed the other surgical colleges in the UK and Ireland to look at a system of categorizing procedures, if you like, to enable hospitals to focus on which patients to give priority to when so much of the resource was dedicated to other things and so little was available for surgery, so few beds, and operating theatres with high levels of PPE required and so on. So it's an important piece of work, and it's become interestingly embedded now, hasn't it? It's sort of, as you say, part of the language, but being able to identify top priority urgent patients, people needing cancer operations quite urgently, other priorities that were perhaps not quite as urgent as that, but still needed attention. I think that has been, as far as I can see, very helpful right across the sector, right across the NHS and indeed the independent sector, for providing elective surgery for patients. So that's been a really important piece of work that we've done. And as you say, it's stuck. And it'd be interesting to see how far the NHS pursues that. We pursue that as we try and pick up elective surgery, as hopefully we can see the pandemic beginning to wane.
Yeah, just on that, a couple of things on that. Firstly, what's your sense of how the surgical workforce is getting on? It's been interesting, hasn't it? It seems those that are busy have been ridiculously busy. We know by and large the workforce is very, very tired. I don't think anaesthetist is one your specialty, one specialty that's really come to the fore, and I'd be lucky to find an anaesthetist that's had a day off in the last year, let alone anything else. Some surgical specialties haven't done much. I'm involved in the Royal Orthopaedic Hospital in Birmingham, and some our surgeons we've given over capacity to support work we don't usually do for the rest of the system. So, I mean, some of our surgeons have found themselves actually working as nurses in the ICU at University Hospitals Birmingham, the big ICU there. What's your sense of morale amongst the community at the moment?
I think it's pretty challenging for morale. As you say, Richard, there's there are some surgeons, some specialties mainly focused on emergency urgent work that have been incredibly busy and had to work in very, very difficult circumstances. As I say, doing an operation while wearing full PPE is a really, really challenging, difficult thing to do. but they have been working very, very hard in their day job, so to speak, and are absolutely, kind of worn out, tired, need a break at the moment. And at the other end of the scale, I mean, I've got friends who are orthopedic surgeons who are frustrated actually because they want to treat their patients. They can see the waiting list getting longer and longer, and they haven't been able to do that. But as you say, quite a number of them have volunteered to work in ICU, to work, in other clinical capacities. Some of them now actually offering to do vaccinations and so on. So I think everybody's been able to pull their weight to some degree, but as I say, whether you're tired because you've been working flat out, whether you're frustrated because you haven't been able to do your job, and particularly seeing the waiting lists increase, morale is not great at the moment. And I think we all need to do something to support not just surgeons, obviously, and surgical teams, but everybody across the NHS and beyond to get a bit of a break and then pick up and crack on with it.
So as we come out of this, you're interested in your thoughts. I mean, you've got operational health services background, and how do you think, as we look to try and recover that get it top of the elective backlog and get the waiting list down again, do you think we'll see any sort of major changes to the reconfiguration of services? It's certainly, we've thought about this a lot, and by whatever measure you look at it, we were particularly badly affected in the way we stocked electives, and we've struggled to get it going again. And I think some of it is because of the way we organise the health service. We haven't got that many specialist hospitals anymore. Do you think that'll change? Will we see more places like the Royal Orthopaedic or more cold elective centres? It's something I know certain orthopods have told us for years, just build us 30 big factories and we'll deliver brilliant care with zero infections. Do you think that might be sort of more embedded as we come out of this?
I think we are likely to see more of that, and it's certainly something that as a college we're interested in. It's something that we would like to promote. Even before COVID, it's worth remembering that there's quite a lot of disruption to elective surgery. And in fact, I think when you look at the data, there's more fluctuation in elective surgery than there is in emergency surgery because of the effects of winter demand on emergencies and so on. And elective surgery is the first thing to go. And here we are as a result of all of that with 4.7 million people on the waiting list. Nearly 400,000 people have been waiting for over a year for their operation. I mean, it's the statistics, and they're real people behind the statistics are dreadful and worrying to all of us. So we think that separating elective work from emergency, the hot A&E driven sites is something that we should really look at. And I think surgeons feel that having that reliability of being able to do their operations, being able to do their lists when they're scheduled, being able to get people into beds, as you say, being able to protect against infection risks, all of those things are really important. We're interested in what's going on in some of the parts of the country. London, where we happen to have our base, is doing a lot around all of this. The Northeast is doing quite a lot, and other parts of the country as well. So I think we are very interested in, and certainly we would promote the idea of what we call surgical hubs, but protected, cold sites to be able to address this enormous backlog of patients.
Yeah, it was interesting. I had cause to revisit your Future of Surgery commission, the fantastic work that was done on that recently. We were asked to give a 10-year forward view of the sector, and I borrowed on that. And it struck me some of the things you're talking about there are relevant in this context. So we talked about the international work, robotics, it keeps coming up, but the fact that you can some of those technologies may help us reconfigure services in this country in the immediate term, as you said. So we'll watch that one with interest, Andrew. I'm sure we'll be speaking to yourself and the policy team about that. So finally, you mentioned you happen to have a base in London. I've not been into town for golly over a year now. Last time I was in Lincoln's Inn when we were together, you had the builders in. Very, very excited stuff going on there. Tell us how the developments at the college are actually going at the moment.
Well, it's nearly there, Richard, and it's been going for 3 years, isn't it? Bit more with the demolition of a lot of our buildings and the rebuilding. And would you believe it, we're almost there. This time next week, we are expecting to get the keys back to our brand new building. And I'm looking forward to showing you around when we can. It's an amazing development. I was there last week having a look round. Still lots of people in there, laying floors, putting up. We got the chandelier from the Honourable Company of Barbers, who we have sort of more than 200 years of history with. That's just been put up. We've got doorknobs being put on, and it's all going on in there. But in a week's time, it'll be just about finished, and we'll be moving in at that point. It'll be a great facility for the whole of the surgical community. We've got a learning centre in there. We've got an exam centre. We've got a great conference suite overlooking Lincoln's Inn Fields. We've got fantastic working space in there. The old library at the front of the building has been refurbished. So it's going to be an absolutely great space. And I know you'll love it, Richard, but I'm sure everyone who uses it will love it. And it's a great representation of how the college is, if you like, modernising and moving with the times.
No, that's great. And I'm sure many of the companies watching and listening to this will want to support it, use of the conference facilities and all that kind of stuff. So what we'll do, hot off a week away, so May 21, you'll have the keys. That's great. So what we must do, Andrew, we must bring a delegation over. Perhaps we'll bring our board over, and we'll probably do a board-to-board get-together, and you can give us a personal tour of the Huntarian, which is always a great treat. Andrew, that's been great. We must do it again as we get further through the current extraordinary situation. And as I say, we'll come and see you in person just as soon as we can. But Andrew, that's been fantastic. Really interesting insights there. And thanks for your time today.
Great, Richard. Always good to see you. Take care.